real quick, we have to discuss your Lord and Savior, Anthony Fauci, who is, when pressed on the matter of masks, and I do believe that he represents a lot of other people on this subject matter. When people say, let's say, like mandates coming from the government is a treading upon people's individual liberty, they would say it does no such thing. You get people that then start talking about other things that are not even remotely similar, seat belts. You know, they're NPCs, right? They get a new update or whatever analogy to kind of use, like, oh, well, you must be against this, this, and that. They all say the same thing. It's like whatever is the flavor that week. Now, I have my thoughts on that, and I'm going to tell you why it absolutely is if you're talking about the federal or any government entity basically forcing people to cover their fucking face. But let's see what Mr. Anthony Fauci had to say. Dr. Anthony Fauci, chief medical advisor to the president or President Joe Biden, rejected on Sunday the idea that wearing or not wearing a face covering is a matter of personal liberty. What did Fauci say? Speaking to ABC's This Week, Fauci said he respectfully disagrees, thanks for doing it respectfully, with Republicans who advocate for personal liberty and individual choice on the matter of face mask mandates. To justify his rejection of personal liberty, Fauci said wearing a face mask is not a matter of individual choice because not doing so may cause others to become infected with COVID-19. So basically he's saying that what might happen, what could happen, even though they have been unable to really prove it without a shadow of a doubt, though having numerous studies that have been orchestrated, they just have not gotten the results that they wanted. They can use the ones with the mannequins, but you mean as far as the ones with the random control trials in terms of the effectiveness, but I digress. He says, I disagree with them respectfully. I respectfully disagree with them. The fact is there are things that individual responsibilities that one has. There are things that have to do with you individually, which also impacts others. He says a person's individual decision to not wear a mask not only impacts them, because if they get infected, even though they say it's my decision, if I get infected, I'll worry about that. But the fact is you get infected, even if you are without symptoms, you very well may infect another person who may be vulnerable, who may get seriously ill. So in essence, you are encroaching on their individual rights because you're making them vulnerable, he claims. So you could argue the situation both ways. I'm going to tell you why that's the dumbest fucking argument I've ever heard in regards to this, though it is often repeated when it comes to this Anthony Fauci. Reality of human beings is that if we are living in any sort of close quarters, interacting with each other, the reality of the situation is that we pass viruses, bacteria, to surface, person to person. And because we've lived in, like, let's say this side of the world where we're at, where people have been allowed to pass this stuff around and gain some sort of immunity since they were a kid, because it would be different if you went to some of those still exist in pockets of Africa and pockets of Asia, where you might go somewhere that is, you might go over there and you may infect the populace with Lord knows what, and that might kill them off. It's a fact of life that if you are living among other individuals, that will happen. Now, never mind the fact that what you're saying regarding the mask and its effectiveness has still yet to be fucking proven with a random controlled trial. It has not been proven that without a shadow of a doubt that the effectiveness is so substantial from a person not wearing one versus wearing one when it comes to spreading this. You haven't done it. There's not one that exists yet. The ones that have existed, that have a random control trial, that they have not had the results that they wanted. So in other words, they've been inconclusive at best. They haven't confirmed it. So never mind that, though. Let's just get to the fact that it's a fact of life that people interact with each other. And before COVID-19, we did this. And at no point in time were people expected to wear a mask. Never was. COVID-19 is not the only virus. It's not the only coronavirus that you may pass to another individual that may be vulnerable. And of course, that is on you. This is why people say that it's not my job to take care of you. You know, if you, for example, are immunocompromised, and you have to act accordingly. But it's not on the other person or groups of people to adjust their life based upon what might happen in the event that you come in contact with them if you are entering a situation where that is a likely scenario. You know what you're getting yourself into. It happens with something as simple as the common cold, which is coronavirus, and it has no cure. You know, people die from that, right? And we never were expected to cover our faces wherever we go. It doesn't matter if you're jabbed up or not, because there's other viruses that exist. People die every year from viral pneumonia. Viral pneumonia, not associated with influenza, has no cure. It does not have a cure. They can at best try to treat the symptoms that it is that you're having, but it has to run its course. If it's not associated with influenza, there's no cure. Yet, people existed, assumed this risk as individuals acting among other individuals before. So why on earth does that go out the window, even with a jab with COVID? Why stop at COVID? Why not? I'm not trying to give them ideas. I'm just saying it's an illogical non-argument. Number one, because it's such a difficult thing to prove, right? It's one thing like if you're talking about something like a disease that is so obvious in which you know that you have it, and then you knowingly purposely go to infect someone else. Let's say if it's like a sexually transmitted disease. That's a completely different conversation, though. You're talking about something where right now, like you say, which still has also you yourself. This is the funny thing. He himself said this prior, like in February of 2020. He said that what is deemed as asymptomatic people, healthy folk, are not the drivers of a pandemic. He said that. Don't take my word for anything. We looked at the video on the channel multiple times. He said that. So even with that, when we talk about asymptomatic spread, which is basically healthy people going about their business, you mean to tell me that it's not an encroachment on somebody's individual liberty to require them at the level, basically saying if you exist, you must wear a mask? To act like that's not an infringement is horseshit. Again, it's one thing for individuals to require that on their own private property. Hell, they can require whatever the fuck they want. If they say, if you're on my private property and if you want to exist on it, you got to walk on your fucking hands. I might think that's the dumbest fucking thing in the world, and I'm not going to obviously be on that person's private property, but that's their right to do that because it's theirs. But that's not what we deal with mandates. With government mandates, you're saying that everybody within the geographical area must follow this particular rule. And if they don't, which is the argument that Fauci's trying to make, you're saying that I'm impeding on the other person's individual liberty when they decide to also be in an area where we know we're like in a more public sphere existing. It ain't just COVID. It's anything, all sorts of things that are being spread from person to person. If we held that logic and extended it to its conclusion, people would be having entire bags on their face and never, ever going outside. Because by your logic, Fauci, they're impeding on someone else's liberty. That's not how this shit works. It's an illogical non-argument that when applied to virtually anything else, it falls apart immediately. And the problem, though, is that these are powerful people of influence, and they think that's a good argument. I mean, to be fair, who's going to say anything to the contrary? Well, you hate the science or something like that because, we're supposed to let medical experts that work for the government, albeit be the ones that control all of our lives. That makes no sense whatsoever. And it's on a May basis, too, meaning that they don't even know. You potentially could have, therefore reasons, basically, is what they're doing. These guys are Fauci's an asshole, man. But I digress. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.